Welcome to Website Design Made Simple, the podcast for busy small business owners who want a high-performing website that converts and sells their offers, even while they're sleeping. Because you deserve to have a strategic and beautiful website that truly represents your brand and positions you as the expert that you are. I'm your host, Jenny B., web designer and creative director at Jenny B Designs, where we believe that your website is the one thing that makes you sales and builds your brand at the same time. Ready to say goodbye to a website that you're embarrassed to share? And hello to a money-making, personality-packed powerhouse? Let's head into today's episode. How can we make our websites more user-friendly and effective? Well, it actually starts with optimization. I talk a lot about what to do and what to add to your website. So today, I actually want to share with you 9 things to remove from your website immediately to make it a little bit more user-friendly and effective for you. As I'm recording this, it's the beginning of September. Everyone's getting back into the groove of things, and I really love the fall season in New England. It's just something about a fresh start. I think I always love the back-to-school vibes, and I'm digging in hard as we kick off the fall season, and I'm sure your business might be experiencing a kind of fall boost as well. And it's a great time, like I've shared in previous episodes, to really take a peek at your website and to make a few changes to make it a little bit more optimized for the season to be coming. Before I get into the episode, I just want to take a second and introduce myself. My name is Jenny B. I own Jenny B Designs. We are a brand and web design studio. And I just have a passion for helping other small businesses shine online. I come from a marketing background, and I really love to design a beautiful, but more importantly, strategic website that truly reflects your brand and your brand personality and will attract your ideal client and make you money. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, your website needs to work for you and make you money. And that's what I love helping other small business owners do. I also wanted to share, there's a new feature in the podcast player where it has a send a message button when you read the show notes right in the podcast player. And if you have a question for me or you want to share a message with me, I would love to hear from you. Just scroll down and click that send a message button and I will get a text message from you. It's super fun and I love hearing from you so that I really know that what I'm sharing is making a difference and helping you with your websites. So let's get started. I have 9 things I want to talk about removing from your website today. The first thing that I want you to remove is your complicated menu, your navigation menu. This is the menu at the top of your website, the options that you have available for the visitors who come to your site. I love to see a navigation menu of 5 items or less. And if you can get less, I am obsessed with that. I think that the fewer items that you have, the more directive you are being to your website visitor, and you can drive them and guide them to the next step in their journey with you to wherever you want to go. When you have too many options up in that menu, it can become overwhelming and confusing for the visitor, and they might not know what to do, and they might not know how to navigate or handle your website. And in turn, you actually miss out on them taking any action at all. Now, let me give you an example of what I'm kind of talking about. A lot of times when we do our own websites, a DIY website, let's give an example of a coach, because I work with a lot of coaches. And perhaps they have a coaching program. And up at the top, it has coaching. They have a one-on-one coaching option. They have a group coaching option. They have a mastermind option. And perhaps they have an event coming up. And instead of grouping these options under a singular drop-down called services, they just leave those items up at the top. So at the top, you would see group coaching, one-on-one coaching, the event that's coming up, mastermind, and then whatever other options that they have. Perhaps it's the about page, the contact page. They have a blog or a podcast. And as I'm talking, you can picture the top navigation just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The better option is to bucket things and combine things under a drop-down. So in this example, it would be under the services drop-down. There would be one navigation item called services, and under that, it would have all the different services, the one-on-one, the group, the mastermind, things like that, under that singular option. I love to see, like I said, for service providers, 5 options or less. I think the options that you could have could be something like your About page, because this is one of the highly visited pages on your website. Important to have this. So the About page, the services, either a singular services page or what I just shared with you, a drop down of multiple services, and then the contact so that people can get in touch with you, and then a button. And that button is the main action you want people to take on your website. A lot of times this is to fill out your contact form or to book a consultation call with you or to make that appointment. Anything that your main goal is, that needs to be the button. If you have a blog, that could also be a button up at the top, a navigation item. If you have a podcast, that could be a navigation item. If you have both, consider using the top navigation resources and then have both the blog and the podcast under that as a drop-down. What I'm getting at is that you want to make sure that your menu up at the top is as simple as possible. Let me share some things that I see that you can get rid of. If you list, this actually could be its own option. I could have said 10 things to remove, but if you list your homepage in the top navigation, remove it. You do not need to list your homepage in the top navigation. People know when you click on the logo, you're taking back to your homepage. Just make sure if you take it away that it is true, because sometimes if your website was built many, many years ago, it might not work. But most websites will go back to the homepage when someone clicks on the logo. So you want to remove that home as an option. You also want to consider removing testimonials if you have that up at the top in your navigation. Like I said, less is more up there. So if you want to have a page dedicated to testimonials, then perhaps link to it on one of your services pages when people are starting to really get a sense of who you are and what you do. I actually like to just sprinkle the testimonials throughout the websites that I build. I think that's a better user experience instead of going to a singular page for testimonials. Sometimes I see FAQs up at the top. You don't need FAQs up at the top. Perhaps you can put them in the footer or link to them on your services page when people are really starting to come up with those questions, or even just put it at the bottom of your services page. Less is more up at that menu. I also think that when it comes to complicated, sometimes people tend to complicate the names in the navigation menu. I see this a lot with blogs. People want to give that blog a fancy name, and I am all for a fancy name for your blog. Name it whatever you want. Have it be something super fun, super witty. But in your top navigation, don't put that name there. Put blog. People know what blog means. And once they click that and they get to the blog, you can have the title of the blog when they land there. But up at that top navigation, you want it simple language. Same goes for services. If you have a service that is a little bit unique and it has a different type of name, call it service so people understand what they're clicking and where they're going to. And try to keep it as simple as possible. Sometimes you'll see an about page called like About Mary Jo. Yes, you can do that to add a little bit more personality, but truthfully, I think it's better to have short and sweet and simple. So just linking the about. And then when they get to that page, of course you can write, about Marianne or whatever her journey is, things like that. So look at your menu and remove that complicated menu. What can you do to make it a little bit more simple, a little bit more clean, and drive people to what you want them to do? Now, item number 2, I kind of just covered in the complicated menu talk that I just gave. Item number 2 is limit the navigation to essential links. So back to that navigation, right? Just keep what you need to have there: about, services, contact. If someone is filling out a form on your contact page, and that is the button that you're driving people to, maybe even consider removing the contact option and having that as the button. You can call the button contact, you can call the button get in touch, whatever you want. But then you're just having 2 actual menu items, about and services, and then that button. Think how simple that is and how clean that feels when someone gets on their website. See what you can do to limit your navigation to essential links only. I'm interrupting this episode to ask you a question. Is your website leaving money on the table? Find out your website's true earning potential with my free website personality quiz. In just 3 minutes, you'll discover your website's distinct personality type, get 3 custom-tailored high-impact strategies to boost conversions, with actionable tips you can implement today to start seeing results. Unlock the secret to making more money from your site and take the quiz now to watch your business grow. You can find the link for the quiz down in the show notes. Now back to the episode. The third thing I want you to remove from your website is wild colors or anything that does not match your current branding. Let's talk about it. You most likely have a brand guidelines. This would be something that your brand designer created, or if you did it yourself, you created your logo, you came up with colors that you are going to use for your brand and fonts that you're going to use. And that's how you are going to show up online, in print, and basically everywhere that you can be found. What I see that tends to happen is sometimes people can create a brand and come up with colors that they intend to use. But then when they are creating things like, for example, in Canva, they're creating Canva templates. They use a template that comes with a color that actually is in their brand guidelines, but they think it looks really good. All of a sudden, they're using that color in their Canva template, in their graphic designs. Now, the same goes for your website. Sometimes people create a website with a template, and they do their best to incorporate their brand colors. Or maybe they actually just forget to incorporate their brand colors. Sometimes you have colors on your website that don't actually correspond to your brand colors. Sometimes you add things to your website and you forget your brand colors, or you think that it should be a standout color, but it doesn't really match your palette. I want you to just visually look at your website. Is there anything that stands out that doesn't represent your brand? Is there anything that is too vibrant, too bright? Does it look balanced to you? Does the design feel right? Just take a peek. Because like I said, we are all doing so many things. And when we go to update our website, maybe we're focused on the About page and a specific section of the About page. You're talking about your story, and you updated that with some text and you used some colors and things like that. But you never took that step back to look at it with the entire page as a whole and with your entire website as a whole. Does it look balanced? Does it match everything else? Just take a peek. And if you see any wild colors that look out of place, anything too vibrant that doesn't match, then take a second and tone it down and make it match your brand color so that everything looks consistent throughout your website. Number 4 is fancy jargon to remove from your website. Fancy, fancy, fancy. I always say clear over clever. And it's really important. When someone comes to your website, we're all super busy. We don't have a long attention span, and we want to just get things done. This is even more so on a mobile phone. When someone comes to your website on a phone, they really don't have time to read something that is complicated, full of jargon that they are trying to digest and understand what you mean, and they're confused about what you do and if you can help them. You want to make sure that you are using language that is simple and clear and straightforward so that someone lands on your website, they know they are in the right place, that you can do exactly what they need you to do. You're the person who can solve their problems, and then they know exactly how to get in touch with you or how to take the next step. That's really all you need. This is mostly important on the hero section when someone lands on your website. And this actually is where sometimes I see the most jargon. People try to get fancy. You want to use industry words or use words that make your business sound really important or that you service a specific audience or things like that. But I just want to encourage you to eliminate any fancy jargon. Make it really simple. And I love using copywriters. The benefit of a copywriter is beyond compare. They have the ability to just pull out the words that can speak to your ideal client and let them know that they are in the exact place that they need to be and that you are the person that can help them with their problem. But in lieu of working with a copywriter, this is where I like to use AI. You can use your favorite AI tool and pop in your words in any section of your website and ask AI to look at it and see if they can make it a little bit more simple, a little bit more clear. And ask, does this appeal to whatever audience you work with? Or is there anything that can be removed from the sentence to make it a little bit more specific to show the benefits of how I help people? Play with it. Eliminate that fancy jargon. Try to make it as simple and as clear as possible. Mostly on your hero section, but then throughout your entire website, just encouraging people to take that action. Number 5, to remove. I want you to think about removing your contact form if, I'm going to use an if, you use that contact form to schedule an appointment with you. And what I mean by that is if your process is for someone to fill out the contact form to get in touch with you, and then you just send them a scheduling link or you send them an email and say, I'd love to meet you. Are you available on Tuesday at 1 p.m.? I want you to remove that contact form and just embed your scheduling link right there. You're going to take a step out of the equation, and someone is going to be able to take action with you much faster than going back and forth with you to set that appointment up. They are on your website. They want to take action. They are inspired and motivated. And it's probably the most motivated they're going to be. They want something in place. And by offering that scheduler so that they can schedule a time to meet with you immediately on your website, you are guaranteeing that more people are going to set that appointment with you than not. I think that if you have a scheduler tool, try adding that right to your website instead of the contact form and play with it and see how it goes. But by removing that additional step, you're removing the friction and getting people into your sales funnel a little bit faster. Number 6, to remove social media icons. Now, they do have their place on their website, and I'm going to share with you where. But you want to remove the social media icons that are a distraction. When someone comes to your website, you want them to take an action with you. I always talk about this, to book the consultation call, to buy the membership, to buy your course. Whatever you want them to do, that's your desired action. What you don't want them to do is leave your website. You don't want them to come to your website, learn more about you, see your social media icons. Oh, she's on Instagram. So they click over to Instagram. They see your profile. This is really cool. And then all of a sudden, they're scrolling and you've lost them on Instagram. They're not going to return to your website. It's a big black hole over there. You don't want to send people over to social media. It is just excessive noise and distractions from your core content. Where I most see these social media icons, and this actually happens a lot in templates, but I will say I do see a lot of designers adding them as well. Up at the top, the header of your website, there should be no social media icons. You should not be driving anyone off of your website at the header of your website as soon as someone lands. You want to keep this as clean as possible. And I suggest that the only place that you include social media icons is at the footer of your website. I do think that there is value with someone staying in contact with you on social media, right? No one is going to always take the desired action on your website that you want them to. Sometimes they need to be warmed up. And this warming up can take place in having them sign up for your freebie, so getting them onto your email newsletter list and continuing that conversation, or getting them onto your social media account and continuing the conversation there. So I do think that it is good to have your social media icons at the bottom of your website, but I don't think that they should appear anywhere else throughout the entirety of your website. I do know that let's give an example of an interior designer. I know that some interior designers have beautiful portfolios and they like to showcase their work on Instagram. And I've had the request to embed the Instagram feed into their website in the footer. And I would say that you should avoid this if possible. I'll tell you why. Because as soon as someone sees that Instagram feed, they just think Instagram and they're going to navigate over to there. I know that you want to showcase your beautiful work, and that's a good way to keep things updated. But if your website is designed properly, you will be showcasing your beautiful work throughout it. So try to avoid adding any kind of social media embeds into any part of your website, except at the footer when you want someone to get in touch with you. Number 7, I want you to remove anything that is an obvious stock image. And this is like your traditional stock image. When I say to you stock image, you have something that comes to mind. For me, when I say that, I see like a table and a team sitting around the table, and it just looks really stocky to me. That's what I picture. When it comes to your website, you want to avoid and remove anything that looks overly stocky if you are using stock images. Of course, I always suggest working with a brand photographer. That is the best way to showcase your personality online and make your website a unique place for you and your business. But in the absence of that, sometimes we all have to turn to stock imagery, and that's okay. But I want you to remove anything that is obviously stock imagery based. There are some great sites out there, depending on what you're looking for. I typically suggest Pexels or Unsplash. There are a few other sites if you have a more aesthetic vibe that you could pick from, a little bit more artsy. But there are stock sites that aren't just your average everyday pictures that you see. So I encourage you to take a look at your website, and if you can, consider doing a brand shoot. That's a great investment in your business and your online profile. But if not, then consider replacing your obvious stock images with something a little bit more offbeat. I think it will go a long way to build that know, like, and trust factor and build that connection when someone visits your website. Number 8, to remove, team bios. Team bios, and I want to talk about this one. I mentioned this in option number 1. Less is more. And this truly applies to everything on your website, your navigation and your content. I like to see a website as small and as concise as possible. And I know that there are a lot of businesses who have a fair amount of team members, and they want to showcase their team and have each team member on there, as well as adding a bio on the website for those team members. I'm going to be honest with you. People are busy. Your visitors are busy. And they most likely are not going to sit there and read a bio of your, 25 staff members or 50 staff members that you have on your website. I think what would be more beneficial than listing your entire team and having bios for them is getting a team photo and sharing about your team culture, or what you do as a team, or how you rely on your team, or how they make a difference in your business. Having a group shot with your entire team and a paragraph that offsets it, I think, is more important and makes more of an impact than listing out your 50 team members and their bios. So if you do have a large staff and you do list them out on your website, perhaps consider simplifying things, including a group shot, and not having as many bios and as many pages that people can click through. Because at the end of the day, we have a goal on our website. It's driving traffic to whatever we want to happen. That contact page, that buy page, things like that. And then finally, let's talk about number 9. What I want you to remove is any auto-playing videos or audios. So let's clarify this. What do I mean? When you land on a website, you don't want a YouTube video or a Vimeo video to just automatically start playing. And let's clarify a little bit more about this. When I say video, I mean when the video is the content that you're sharing. I don't mean video as in a background video. Sometimes when you land on a website, on that hero section, there's a video that plays, but it's a background video. People aren't meant to hear the sound for that video. It usually doesn't have any sound. It's just a background video that usually has words over it, very specific, concise words, like I say, with no jargon, that share what you do, how you help, and how to take the next step with you. And that's okay. That can be a video that autoplays, no problem, because it's a background video. What I'm talking about for autoplay is a video. Let's give an example. I just had a fantastic video brand shoot with Paige and Main Page Media. And what she did is helped record a video business card for me that shares about what I do, how I help people, and is kind of like a video business card for my business. I have this on my About page. When you get to that section of my website, I don't want that video to autoplay. Autoplaying video is intrusive. You want to respect your visitors' environment when they come to your website. You want to prevent disruptions, and you want to give your audience control. The control to play the video, the control to unmute the video. Because if this video auto plays, it creates a little bit of a disruption and takes more resources off of your website. Versus if someone were to just click play, there's a better user experience in that. The same applies for audio. And in fact, I would say it's even more important with audio. There's nothing worse than going to a website and then all of a sudden you're hearing audio playing and you have no idea where it's coming from. You don't know how to turn it off. And it's just disrupting everything that you do. You need to make sure that that audio autoplay is not on. It needs to be turned off. And you need to give the user the ability to select to turn it on or to turn it off as they wish. So think about how you're using your videos, how you're using your audio, and make sure that you're giving your users control and that they can choose to play the video if they want to. And there you go. Those were my 9 things to remove from your website. Let's just recap really quickly. The first one is remove that complicated menu. The second is back on that menu, limiting that navigation to those essential links only. 3 is get rid of those kind of wild colors that don't match your brand. 4, eliminate fancy jargon. 5, consider eliminating your contact forms with a scheduling tool if that's what you do in your business. 6, please, please, please remove those social media icons where they don't need to be. 7, avoid those obvious stock images. 8, think about your team bios and is there a better way to approach it? And 9, remove those autoplay videos or audios. That was a short and sweet list of things that you could remove from your website. You know, if you don't have time to sit down and give your website a deep dive, just take 5 minutes and look at your nav. I think just reorganizing your nav will do so much for you. Think about what you can streamline and take a few things away from. I appreciate you so much for listening, and if you have any questions, please feel free to send me a message like I mentioned earlier in the podcast app. I would love to hear from you, and I would appreciate it if you would take a minute or two to leave me a review. It really means so much, and it helps me share my message out with more people who I can help with their websites and making more money with them. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time. And that wraps up another episode of Website Design Made Simple. I hope you found the insights shared in this episode valuable and takes you one step closer to creating a website that attracts more of your ideal clients and builds your brand. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. Your review will help us reach more small business owners like you who are ready to make more money with their website. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.